Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere a little grim. But don't worry, you're already doomed. The air is thick with steam and something vaguely medicinal like burnt thyme and questionable sweat. Marble pillars rise round you like ancient sentinels, but they don't offer comfort, just judgment. You're standing in the grand entrance of a Roman bathhouse, the Thermae, clutching your tunic like it's the last thread connecting you to dignity. It won't be for long. The floor is damp, the sandals are slippery, and no one seems to care if you're confused, naked, or both. A man in a threadbare robe brushes past you, humming. Behind him, two boys wrestle over a sponge on a stick. You haven't even entered the bathing area and you already know you're not going to make it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, while you're here, drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is there. It's always a joy to know who else is wandering into ancient chaos with me at 2 a.m. Now. Dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't so much walk into the bathhouse as get absorbed by it. The outer doors shut behind you with the finality of a lid being sealed, and suddenly the muffled world of the street vanishes. You're inside Rome now, Rome on its most self-satisfied, half-naked, humid day. The Thermae is not a modest affair. This isn't some sleepy backyard tub situation. This is an architectural flex. High ceilings, decorative mosaics, fountains spurting not so clearly filtered water, and statues of gods who all look like they just finished leg day. You're surrounded by marble that cost more than your entire extended family is worth. You squint into the mist. It's beautiful, but in the way that a storm cloud is beautiful right before it ruins your picnic. You're not here because you want to be. You're here because in ancient Rome, hygiene, networking, and suffering are all part of the same afternoon activity. Everyone goes to the baths, rich or poor, soldier or senator, baker or bard. And now, unlucky time traveler, so do you. You glance round and try not to look lost. It's not working. Everyone can tell you're new. It's in the way you hover near the wall, clutching your wall like it'll ward off judgment. It won't. The wall is sweating. That's not a metaphor, it's literally damp. Everything is, including you. Now a man nearby is rubbing scented oil into his armpits with all the pride of a sculptor unveiling a masterpiece. Across the room, a pair of older women argue about the best time to enter the caldarium. You don't know what that is yet. You will. Too soon. Meanwhile, your phone is dead, but so are your neighbors. And honestly, if you could scroll for a how-to guide right now, you would. Instead, you shuffle toward a doorway because it looks promising. This turned out to be false hope. It's just the entrance fee counter. You're not paying with a card. Of course, you're fumbling through a tiny leather pouch full of Roman coins that feel suspiciously sticky. They're called asses, yes, really. You try not to laugh as you count them out into a very bored-looking attendant's palm. He raises an eyebrow like he's seen too many lost bathers to care anymore. You've technically gained entry, but nothing has prepared you for what happens next. The flow of people seems to split into some saunter confidently toward the changing room. Others, already dripping and disheveled, are heading in the opposite direction, eyes glazed, like war veterans who saw something in the steam they can never unsee. You follow the first group. You try to stay close to a man with a towel that looks cleaner than yours, safety in presumed hygiene. It doesn't help. The floors are warm underfoot. A clever bit of Roman engineering called hypercost. Underneath the bathhouse, slaves tend fires that heat the floors and rooms above. It's genius, you think, right before you nearly slip on a wet tile that no one warned you about. A child giggles. It's unclear if it's at you or just because this is the Roman equivalent of a slip and slide. The room ahead opens into a semicircular atrium decorated with frescoes of mythological figures. Doing things you probably shouldn't. Study too closely. There's Hercules flexing while scrubbing a centaur. Neptune reclining with one eyebrow arched. They all look suspiciously clean for how sweaty the room feels. You're already sticky. Not in the fun, sun-drenched festival way. In the did someone spill soup down my back kind of way. You consider leaving, but you've paid your asses. And the man at the front desk definitely isn't giving refunds. A group of teenagers rush past. One of them smacking the other with a rolled-up tunic. You flinch instinctively and almost back into a brazier. Heat whooshes up your side. A Bathhouse regular nods sagely at your near immolation, then turns away. Rome doesn't coddle the clueless. You attempt to look like you belong, which is hard. When your tunic is clinging to your ribs and you smell faintly of travel and terror, you wonder if Romans had deodorant. They did. It involved crushed rose petals, vinegar, and hope. You smell like none of those things, and then you hear it, the echoing slap of feet on wet marble, the hiss of steam from the next room, the collective grunts of strangers trying to relax aggressively. You are approaching the core of the Roman experience. Historians still argue whether bathhouses were more about hygiene or socializing. Frankly, you suspect they were mostly about mild public humiliation and warm floors. You shuffle forward, trying not to inhale too deeply. The steam has an odd consistency. It smells like basil and knees. Someone passes you holding a sponge on a stick like it's a sword of honor. You nod. They nod back. This feels like diplomacy. Maybe you're starting to fit in. Then someone bumps into you and your oil bottle slips from your hand. It clatters on the stone floor, rolls, and is promptly kicked into a drainage channel. You watch it disappear down the gently trickling path like a sad Roman message in a bottle. You stand still, mourning your royal. The man next to you mutters something in Latin, gestures toward the next chamber, and shuffles off. You think it was encouragement or a warning. Your tunic, meanwhile, has begun its slow descent from damp to unforgivable. Remember, that damp tunic, it's still there, still clinging, still ruining your will to live. And it's only going to get wetter. The sound of sloshing grows louder. You step forward. There's no turning back now. You step through the archway and into the next room like someone stepping into the unknown and not the fun, adventure movie kind. This is the atrium of social horror, where the real bathhouse experience begins, with coins, customs, and the unshakable feeling that you're doing it wrong. You're standing in the vestibule, just before the central hallway leads you deeper into the labyrinth of steam, status, and social gymnastics. Right now, you're still fully clothed, though fully is generous. Your tunic is soaked halfway up from the damp floor, and your sandals squish with every step. There's no doubt the bathhouse is winning, and you haven't even reached the changing room. The man ahead of you deftly flips a coin to a silent attendant, who nods and waves him on like a gatekeeper to some elite club. You fumble for your coin pouch again, yes, the one that smells faintly of vinegar and nervous perspiration, and manage to spill a few quadrantes onto the floor. They roll and scatter, one slipping into a crack between tiles, another landing under someone's bare heel. You freeze. So does he. It's a tense moment. Then, without speaking, he raises his foot, flicks the coin toward you with a toe, and moves on. You nod, silently grateful. As you retrieve your sweaty currency, you have successfully completed level 1. Not being thrown out for incompetence, the entrance fee doesn't just cover a soak. This is Rome. After all, nothing is simple. You're also expected to understand an entire social protocol that hasn't been printed anywhere and definitely wasn't explained at orientation, which doesn't exist. It's like navigating a gym, spa, coffee shop, and high school locker room all at once. And in Latin, historians still argue whether entrance fees varied based on the day or social rank. Some claim admission was free on religious holidays or subsidized for the poor by emperors trying to win votes. Others insist everyone paid something, even if only in humility. You're paying in both. You're waved through the next set of doors and enter a side chamber filled with muted conversation and the occasional sharp laugh. This is the Bathhouse's unspoken audition stage, the apoditorium, or changing room. It's less a room and more a theater of human vulnerability. Stone benches line the walls. Niches carved into them act as lockers. But there are no keys, no guards, just hope. You're supposed to leave your clothes here and trust they'll be waiting when you return. Sure, and maybe Jupiter will wash your sandals for you. You hesitate by the doorway, scanning the room. Some bathers are undressing with the ease of people who've done this since childhood. Others lounge already half naked, chatting casually about the price of olives or the governor's latest scandal. A few are fully nude, stretching with the theatrical grace of men who believe the human body peaked in 74 BCE. You don't know where to look. You're suddenly excruciatingly aware of how you're standing, to tense, to casual. Do Romans slouch? Can you slouch in a tunic? You pick a niche, one that doesn't have a suspicious smear in it, and begin the delicate art of undressing in public while pretending it's not horrifying. You tug your tunic off in one motion, which unfortunately gets stuck over your elbow. There's a moment of panic as you half flail, then wrestle it down like it's a stubborn curtain. Somewhere behind you, someone chuckles. You pretend not to hear. Your sandals come off next, leaving you standing on the bare floor, which is warm but also inexplicably sticky. You fold your tunic with more care than it probably deserves and place it in the niche. It sags like it already misses you. Then you glance round and realize you're underdressed for this. Not because you're naked, everyone is, but because they all brought accessories, fancy towels, delicate combs, little pots of scented oil. You have a damp rag and the haunting knowledge that you're here on purpose. A boy with a tray walks through offering strips of leather for sale. You're told they're for scraping oil off your skin later, but they look suspiciously like punishment. Devices, you buy one anyway, mostly to fit in. You now own a Roman strigil and exactly zero understanding of how to use it. This moment of silence and clothing loss is punctuated by the realization that you're about to walk naked into a series of communal rooms filled with steam, strangers, and slippery etiquette. You straighten your shoulders because if you're going to be confused and exposed, you might as well pretend it's a choice. You pass through the next arch and into the heart of the Thermae. The noise shifts, echoes bounce differently now, soft and hazy. You hear water dripping rhythmically, the rustle of towels, the occasional thud of someone slipping and pretending they didn't. You are now a ghost drifting between marble columns, a damp soul among hundreds of others trying not to look lost or cold. You pass by a group sitting cross-legged on warm benches, tossing bones in a game that looks like dice mixed with fortune-telling. One man sees you watching and raises a brow. You smile in that universal way that means, I have no idea what's happening. Please don't judge me. He returns to the game without a word. You're invisible. That might be an upgrade. Your new status as a Bathhouse participant begins to sink in. You are now among them men who debate politics while sweating profusely. Women who gossip in low tones while scrubbing their arms with rough cloths. Elders who nod solemnly at the ceiling for no reason. This is the Roman spa culture. and it is thriving without your input. Somewhere behind you, a splash echoes too large to be accidental. You don't look back. It's better not to know. Meanwhile, your phone is still dead, but so is your sense of personal space. You've crossed some invisible line, and the idea of too close no longer applies. You shuffle forward with the herd, deeper into the warmth. You pass another set of attendants offering wine in tiny clay cups. You decline. Hydration is important. You've read that, though, in Rome, hydration might include fermented grape juice and herbs you've never heard of. One man accepts a cup and immediately belches, smiling through it. You turn away. The floor changes beneath your feet. No longer smooth marble, but rather tile rapier, somehow more honest. You're approaching the tepidarium, but you don't know that yet. All you know is that the air is growing warmer, and the mist smells like rosemary and wet linen. There's a soft side to the room, like it's exhaling through stone lungs. You pass a statue of Venus and realize she's holding a small towel. You briefly wonder if it's supposed to be symbolic, or if even goddesses had to wipe the sweat out of their eyes. You remember your corns. They're still back in your pouch in the changing niche, somewhere between your tunic and your misplaced confidence. You wonder if anyone has ever gotten mugged in a bathhouse. Historians debate whether theft was common or merely exaggerated in Roman texts, judging by how fast that one man just walked off with someone else's comb. You have suspicions. You reach a doorway with bronze hinges and a thin curtain of steam hanging like a veil. You hesitate, inhale, and step through. The heat wraps round you instantly, not in a cozy blanket fresh from the dry away, more like a warm, damp hand grabbing your entire body and squeezing just a little too long. You blink. The world blurs, reforms, and continue steaming. Welcome to the tepidarium, but that, thankfully or not, is a misery for the next section. You are now officially inside the apodyterium, the Roman changing room, and somehow you're still losing. The air here is thick with the scent of old olive oil, wet wool, and something unmistakably human. You tell yourself it's fine. It's cultural. It's history. But none of that makes it less awful. Your skin is already clammy. The warmth of the hypercost beneath your feet makes it feel like the floor is trying to hatch you. The mosaic tiles, artful depictions of sea monsters and heroic figures, are barely visible under a film of condensation and occasional stray hairs. You shuffle awkwardly across the damp stone. Your modesty long since surrendered to the gods. To your left, a group of men argue over a corner niche. Their conversation is sharp, fast, and far too animated for people wearing nothing but towels and pride. You assume it's about politics or gladiator bets, or possibly who misplaced whose sandal. One of them gestures aggressively with a sponge on a stick. The others nod solemnly. You don't ask questions. Your belongings, now sitting vulnerably in a wall niche the size of a small bread loaf. Seen far away, you glance back at them as if to say goodbye. They don't respond. If they vanish, you'll have to exit the bathhouse, wrapped in a public shame toga or worse, someone else's. Historians still argue whether attendants called capsari were guardians of your possessions or subtle thieves with better sandals. Some say they were trustworthy young boys paid in tips. Others suggest they occasionally misplaced your belongings if they didn't like your face. Either way, you have no capsa, no tip, and no plan. You awkwardly wrap your towel around your waist and make your way into the next phase of your slow descent, the warm room, or tepidarium. It's like walking into a sauna run by introverts. Everyone here seems incredibly sweaty, yet emotionally distant. As you enter, the heat rolls over you like a lazy cat, persistent, oddly heavy, and vaguely insulting. It's not hot enough to scald, but just warm enough to make you question your life choices. It's a damp, so level heat. You stand there for a moment, blinking through the mist, unsure whether to sit, stretch, or evaporate. The room is decorated with faded frescoes of mythological scenes. You spot Bacchus reclining on a couch, grapes spilling from his hand. It's unclear whether he's asleep, unconscious, or just disappointed in your posture. There are marble benches along the walls, most of them occupied by bathers glistening like cured meats. You take a tentative step forward, and your foot squelches against the tile. You don't look down. You know better now. You claim a spot on the bench. It's already warm, suspiciously warm. You sit anyway, crossing your legs in what you hope is a casual, nonchalant manner, though it mostly looks like someone trying not to faint. The stone presses into your skin with silent judgment. Beside you, an older man exhales deeply and begins rubbing his chest with a round stone. You are not sure if it's for exfoliation or existential clarity. Either way, he seems very committed. You sit silently. You try to relax. Instead, you begin sweating in places you didn't know could sweat. The heat doesn't come in waves, it comes in a slow, relentless crawl. Like honey poured over a corpse, you look at your own arms. They glisten. You try to pretend it's glamorous. It's not. You smell like boiled spinach. A bather near you lets out a long sigh and pours water over his head from a bronze ladle. The water runs down his face and chest and collects on the floor near your feet. You inch away. The puddle follows. You accept your fate. Meanwhile, your phone is still dead. But so is your will to engage with anyone around you. You wish you could. Text someone about the man to seats down shaving his armpits with a seashell. But alas, all you can do is stare into the middle distance and pretend this is normal. You try to use your strigil, the curved scraper you bought earlier. You hold it like a fork. Wrong. You adjust. Still wrong. You glance round. Others use it with the ease of brushing crumbs from a tablecloth. You scrape gently across your forearm. The sound it makes is unflattering, like peeling an orange very badly. Still, you try again. A thin layer of oil and sweat curls up under the metal. You stare at it, unsure if you're disgusted or impressed. A child nearby runs by holding a small jar of perfume. He slips, skids, and catches himself with the poise of someone who's done this before. You are not that child. You stand, thinking motion will help. It doesn't. You are now simply overheated and dizzy. Someone offers you a small clay cup of something that smells like rosemary and vinegar. You sip it. It tastes like regret and floor cleaner. You smile weakly, nod, and immediately question every choice that's led you here. You shift on the bench. The marble is slick. You are slick. Everything is slick. You have become a sluggin, a marble sorter. A soft voice mumbles a prayer to a bathhouse god. You didn't even know there were bathhouse gods. Apparently, the Romans invoked Salus, goddess of health, and sometimes Fortuna for luck, especially if they were bathing during flu season or an awkward first date. You consider whispering your own prayer, something short and desperate. As the sweat pools round your ankles, you start to notice something odd. The silence here isn't peaceful. It's tense. The bathers don't make eye contact. Conversations are murmured. It's not a sanctuary, it's a judgment chamber. Everyone is assessing everyone else's towel placement, posture, scent. You sit up straighter, to straight. Now you look like a soldier. You slump. Now you look sick. You settle on mildly alert but submissive, which seems to be the default Roman vibe. You try to enjoy the heat, to lean into it, to imagine it's detoxifying your modern anxieties and opening your pores to the wisdom of ancient hygiene. But instead, You remember the man in the changing room who casually flossed his toes with twine. You're not detoxing, you're marinating. You glance down at your feet. They are pink, very pink, possibly too pink. You lift one experimentally. It leaves a faint print on the tile, like a damp, apologetic ghost. You sigh. Someone near you sneezes. You recoil instinctively. Then you remember. It's Rome. Germ theory doesn't exist yet. Bathhouses are thought to heal, not infect. You will probably leave here with at least 3 different microbial mysteries. But no one will know that for centuries. You wipe your brow with the corner of your towel, which is now less of a towel and more of a sponge. It smells faintly of goat. You try not to take it personally. A bell rings somewhere soft, metallic. Echoing. It's a signal. You are not sure for what. People begin to rise. Some head toward a doorway where more steam flows like the breath of a particularly moist dragon. You realize with growing dread that this was the warm room. This was the easy part. What comes next is the coldorium, the hot room, the true test of your circulatory system, mental stability, and sweat gland capacity. You follow the others, your towel clinging like a needy ex. Your feet slap softly against the tiles as you shuffle forward. Behind you, the tepidarium sighs, releasing one last puff of rosemary-infused humidity. And ahead there's only steam, stone, and the slow-burning madness of the coldarium. You step across the threshold into the coldarium, and it hits you immediately like opening the oven to check the bread and accidentally sticking. Your whole face inside, except here, it's your entire body. And instead of bread, it's you. You are the bread. The air is no longer just warm, it's wet heat, thick and inescapable. You can't breathe it so much as should. Your lungs politely file a complaint. Your skin, which moments ago was damp, now begins to bubble in protest, and still. Like a dutiful Roman bather who doesn't want to get kicked out and mocked in 3 different languages, you proceed. This is the part of the bathhouse ritual where the body is meant to purge toxins, or sins, or maybe both. No one seems entirely sure. Historians still argue whether the coldarium was more about health or social performance. You're leaning toward the latter. Mostly because you're still not entirely clear what your spleen is, but you are very clear that everyone here is watching everyone else. The floor is warmer now. You walk slowly, partly from caution, partly because your towel feels like a damp napkin about to abandon ship. Round you, the room flickers slightly with steam, as if you've entered a dream sequence or a very low-budget ghost movie. Your vision narrows, you squint, you blink, you sweat harder. The coldarium is circular, with a large heated pool in the center and marble benches built into the walls. The walls themselves are sweating, weaving moisture in long trails that vanish into the curved stonework. The ceiling is high, domed, and suspiciously cracked in places. A few tiny windows near the top let in filtered daylight that looks like it's reconsidering its life choices. You find a place on the lowest bench. It's hot to the touch. You make a small sound when you sit, something between a sigh and a whimper. No one notices, or if they do, they pretend not to, which is somehow worse. The bench begins to leach your will to live through the backs of your thighs. You feel like a particularly sentient dumpling. Beside you, a man calmly exfoliates his upper chest with a rough sponge and a look of spiritual detachment. You try not to compare skin quality to distract yourself from the sensation of slowly poaching. You study the basin in the center of the room. It's filled with water so hot that small tendrils of steam rise off its surface, like shy ghosts escaping one at a time. A few brave or insane Romans are already in the pool, reclining like they've been boiled before and found it pleasant. You think about joining them. You even take a step toward the water. Then someone lets out a low-groan knot of pain. Exactly. But something close enough that you take it as a sign. You retreat to your bench and resume your slow melt. Meanwhile, your phone is still dead, and if it weren't, it would have already overheated and shut itself down, much like you're about to. There is no Wi-Fi here, but if there were, it would be sponsored by lactic acid and disappointment. The room is quiet except for the occasional drip of water from the ceiling and the soft moans of overheated bathers pretending this is rejuvenating. Someone tries to strike up a conversation across the room about politics. They're met with a collective silence so absolute it makes you wonder if they're still alive. You look down and realize your towel has begun to dry in patches, then remoisten itself. It's a cycle. Like the Roman Empire itself, everything here is rising, peaking, and then collapsing under the weight of excess humidity. A bather near. You open the small clay pot and begins applying a thick paste to his legs. It smells like vinegar and crushed mint leaves. He meets your eyes, nods, and then proceeds to rub it into his kneecaps with the dedication of someone preparing for battle. You wonder what it's for. Skin care, scent masking, possibly revenge. You don't ask. You just nod back. Remember that strigil you bought? It's still in your hand. You attempt another scrape, this time on your shoulder. It drags across your skin with a sound like a wet violin played by someone who hates music a bit. Avoil peels off. You pretend this is progress. As the heat builds, your thoughts become sluggish. You imagine your brain is slowly cooking like a soft egg inside your skull. You try to sit upright, but your body slouches of its own accord. It's relaxing, in the way that fainting on a public bus might be relaxing. You wipe your forehead with what's left of your towel. It's now more of a suggestion than a functional object. A nearby column weeps a constant drip of condensation. It lands in a small puddle near your feet, one drop at a time. Like a water clock marking the exact second you lose your sanity. You decide to try the pool after all. It's either that or allow your spine to fuse with the bench. You shuffle forward, testing each step like a raccoon on an unfamiliar patio. The water laps gently, invitingly. You dip a toe. It recoils. You dip it again. You breathe, then you slide in slowly, letting the heat wrap round you like a thick soup. You are the soup. The water is hotter than expected. Not scalding, but intense. Your skin sings. Your nerves shout. But then, something odd happens. You stop fighting it. You let the water have you. You close your eyes. The world fades to pink light and pulsing warmth. You float, barely, and let yourself be suspended in this ancient Roman stew somewhere. Someone starts humming a melody you don't recognize. A folk song, a hymn. You don't care. It's oddly soothing. Even your sweat has started sweating. But your muscles have forgotten how to resist. Then an alarm bell in your mind. Your fingers are tingling. Your chest feels heavy. This is no longer pleasant. You rise awkwardly, like a bag of boiling laundry, and stagger back to the edge. You clutch the wall for a balance. You sit. You drip. You breathe. And then you remember, this was only the middle phase of the bath. There's still more. The scraping, the cold plunge, possibly snacks, possibly crimes. You mop your face with your towel, which now smells like vinegar and defeat. The man with mint paste is gone. In his place, a woman pours water over her shoulders from a brass jug with the elegance of someone raised in steam. You try to copy her. You fail. You dribble water onto your chest and down your leg. It trickles into a sandal that's been hiding under the bench. Not yours. Definitely not returning it. A slave passes by with a bronze bucket and tosses a ladleful of hot water onto the stones. It hisses like a snake with opinions. The room fills with fresh steam. It clings to your lashes. You blink. The room shimmers. The voices have returned. Low murmuring. Punctuated by the occasional wet cough or suppressed belch. You want to ask someone, is this normal? But you suspect the answer would be yes, and that would make it worse. Somewhere in this room, someone is being reborn. Someone else is plotting a murder. Someone is probably just wondering what's for dinner, and you're wondering if there's any way to dry your soul, because it, too, has become damp. You rise slowly. You've had enough heat to qualify as a roast. Your body aches in strange, symmetrical places. Your towel is now a symbol, not a tool, and ahead, in the next room, lies the final insult, the scraping. You've barely escaped. The coldarium, limbs jangly and head buzzing like you've been gently poached from the inside out. Your skin is glowing not in a spot influencer filtered way, but more like a lobster about to be served. And now, as your feet slap against the tile, you face your next ordeal, all unscraping. You thought the worst was behind you. You thought the coldarium was the crucible, the hot pit where dignity went to sweat and die. But no, Rome isn't done with you. Rome still wants your top layer of skin. You emerge into a long rectangular room, half corridor, half medieval skincare workshop. This is where bathers are massaged, slathered, scraped, and sometimes slightly manhandled. All in the name of health and purification. It's like a spa, run by people who once read about pampering and decided it sounded too gentle. This is the unctuarium, the boiling chamber, and it smells complicated. There's a sharp tang of heated olive oil in the air, mixed with old sweat, herbal paste, and the occasional whiff of something medicinal that's probably not regulated. The floor is slick, the benches are low, and you're already regretting every decision that brought you here. You are approached by a man holding a jar of oil and a strigil, the signature Roman scraping tool. His expression says he's done this thousands of times. His sandals say he's been stepped on more than once. His chest hair is vast and slightly intimidating. He gestures for you to sit. You do, gingerly, trying not to slide off the bench like a grease steel. The stone is warm, like everything else, and faintly sticky. You decide not to investigate further. He dips his fingers into the oil jar and begins to coat your arms in a thick layer of warm olive oil. It drips lazily down your sides, slicking your skin with the consistency of yesterday's salad dressing. You flinch as it pulls in your elbow crease. He doesn't flinch. He just nods and mutters something about open pores and stagnant humor. Meanwhile, your phone is still dead, but so is your patience. You would pay actual money to Google how to survive Roman skincare right now. Instead, you close your eyes and accept your fate. The man lifts the strigil. It gleams in the filtered light, curved like a comma, dulled from use and suspiciously well-oiled. He begins scraping. The sensation is not pain, but also not relaxation. It's like being exfoliated with a metal spoon by someone who's trying not to wake a sleeping baby in the next room. The oil, sweat, and whatever dignity you had left curl up into grimy ribbons and peel off onto the floor. You watch, horrified and fascinated, as your old self is removed in strips. You're a candle being unwrapped, a potato being prepped for a soup, a particularly confused fish in an ancient spa. The strigil continues its slow circuit arms, chest, legs, back. You're flipped like a crepe. A quiet part of your brain begins to think this might be working. Your skin is oddly smooth. You feel light, slightly dizzy, and extremely moisturized. But then the oil gets in your eye. Just a little, just enough to blur your vision and make you question whether Jupiter himself is mocking you from above. You blink rapidly. It doesn't help. The scraper pauses. A cloth is offered. You wipe, you blink. You now smell like olive and regret. Historians still argue whether Romans believed this practice had more to do with hygiene or ritual purification. Some say it was a status symbol, a way to show you had time and resources for the full grooming experience. Others argue it was medical, rooted in the theory of balancing the bodies for humors. You, personally, are feeling 5 humors: hot, slippery, anxious, stinging, and slightly betrayed. Beside you, another bather is being scrubbed with a mixture of crushed fennel and ground seashell. His exfoliator seems less gentle. There's definite grunting, possibly tears. A third bather applies perfume to his underarms with a brush made of boar hair. It smells like basil and suffering. He nods proudly. You nod back. Because that's what people do here. Everyone is nodding and listening and pretending this is pleasant. You're handed a small pot of something that looks like thick grey mud. You're instructed to apply it to your face. You obey. It's gritty. It smells faintly of sulfur. You try to smile, but it cracks. You sit there, half oiled, half mudded, fully confused, and you wonder, is this health? Is this luxury? Or is this an elaborate prank played by the ancients on future time travelers? Someone nearby drops their strigil. It clatters across the floor and is retrieved by a very bored-looking boy with a tray. He sighs, wipes it on his toga, and hands it back without a word. You watch as the man who scraped you begins to prepare another bath of oil for someone else, someone more experienced. Someone whose pores probably open on command. You stand, shaky and glistening, and try to remember how walking works. Your feet slide slightly. Your shoulders shine. Your towel is now mostly theoretical. You shuffle toward the exit like a newly birthed calf, blinking away and staring into the steamy distance. Remember that damp tunic, still back in the changing room, still waiting. Still drier than you'll be for the next 5 hours. You pass. Another chamber, this one filled with laughter and the clink of small cups. There will be food soon and wine, and possibly hallucinations. But first, you must survive the next social arena. The gossip pool. The oil continues to drip from your elbows as you enter a new room. One with lower benches, more steam, and an energy that can only be described as eavesdropping chic. The conversations hush as you arrive, not because you're important, but because you're new. You sit, you listen, and just as you begin to relax again, someone says something about a recent scandal involving a magistrate, a sacred goose, and a broken strigil. You smile politely. You have no idea what's going on, but you do know one thing. You are clean. You are exfoliated. You are deeply, disturbingly moisturized. And you are not done yet. You are now entering the Roman bathhouse's most dangerous zone, not because it's physically treacherous. Although the floor is slipperier than a philosophical debate in a wine bar, but because it's the quietest, and that means everyone can hear everything. This is the Laconicum, or sometimes just the lounging zone depending on the bathhouse layout, and it's where Romans marinate, hydrate, and most importantly dash gossip. The oil from your earlier spa trial still clings to your body like a second, glossier skin. You're basically a walking salad at this point, a warm, anxious, exfoliated salad. As you shuffle in, your feet leaving small shimmering footprints behind you, you realize that silence here doesn't mean peace. It means surveillance. Everyone is listening. And now, so are you. You sit at the edge of a low bench, the marble, cooler than before but still warm enough to keep your pores slightly ajar. Two older men lean in toward each other nearby, their voices just low enough to sound conspiratorial. You don't catch the full story, but it involves a baker's wife, a missing emperor, and a very confused goat. To your right, A group of women lounge in an alcove behind a soft curtain of steam. They pass a jar of something thick and green between them, applying it in dabs to their temples and wrists. A perfumed bomb, maybe, or a homemade revenge recipe. No one explains. You pretend to close your eyes. Which is Bathhouse code for I'm listening, but don't want to get caught listening. It's working. Bits of conversation float your way, gossip about senators, gladiators, an actor who forgot his lines during a tragedy and accidentally started a comedy. Someone laughs softly. The kind of laugh that means, I know something you don't, and I'll never tell you. Meanwhile, your phone is still dead. But so is your ability to process all this social nuance. At home, you'd be casually doom-scrolling while sipping iced coffee. Here, you're oily and silent in a room full of professional whisperers. One man speaks too loudly, his voice bouncing off the walls with an unfortunate echo. Everyone flinches. A few side eyes are thrown. He lowers his voice and immediately tries to look smaller. You've never seen shame applied so efficiently. You feel a tickle on your upper back and twist to find a stray olive leaf clinging to you, possibly from the oil. You remove it with the delicacy of someone extracting a live insect from their shirt. This, naturally, happens just as a nearby woman is discussing her cousin's engagement to a military tribune. You hope the timing didn't make you look smug. Historians still argue whether this stage of the bath was truly for rest or a cover for ancient espionage. Romans weren't just bathing, they were gathering intel. Political alliances, legal disputes, even military strategies were sometimes whispered in rooms just like this. You're not entirely sure. But the man to your left just winked at someone across the chamber after saying the word grain ship. Meant suspicious. You glance round for a way to seem involved without having to speak. Aha, the clay cup. An attendant is making rounds with a tray of tiny wine-filled cups, each smaller than your thumb, but just large enough to make you feel slightly fancy. You accept one. It's lukewarm and surprisingly strong. The wine here tastes like dried figs, made vinegar in a dark alley and made a pact. You sip slowly and nod to yourself, which is another Roman cue. I am part of this, and I approve of whatever is happening. A man across from you does the same. It's like a silent agreement to pretend you're both dignified and not. In fact, wilting slowly like butter on a hot tile dot to break the stillness. Someone begins humming. The tune is old, something that sounds like it might have once been a hymn, or a drinking song, or possibly both. The melody ripples through the room like steam itself. No one joins in, but no one objects. It's allowed. Belly dot you lean back against the stone wall and try to relax, but your back sticks slightly to the surface from the residual wall. You shift. It unsticks with a faint sound. And immediately you're paranoid that everyone heard it. They probably did. This is a room where someone could hear you blink. Remember that strigil. It's still in your hand, because you're not quite sure where to put it. Everyone else seems to have placed theirs artfully resting beside a foot, balanced on a thigh, tucked into a towel fold. Yours just clatters gently to the floor. You pretend that was intentional. The room pretends it didn't notice. You try to focus on the sound of the trickling fountain in the corner. It's shaped like a lion's head, and water flows constantly from its mouth into a shallow basin. It should be soothing. It's not. It sounds vaguely like someone rinsing beans. To teenagers across the room begin laughing about something quiet, breathless laughter that feels like it was aimed at you. You're not sure. Maybe it was the oil leaf. Maybe it was your unfortunate towel knot. You'll never know. You accept it. You are the jerk now. A tall man in a pale blue wrap begins discussing property laws with his companion. He uses phrases like land equity and olive border disputes with such solemnity. You'd think he was a senator. He might be. You nod faintly, as if you to have been embroiled in an olive border issue. Meanwhile, someone sneezes. It's a polite, reserved sneeze, but still, the room shifts slightly. A woman leans back. A man coughs strategically, possibly to cover his discomfort. Another pours a little oil into his hands, rubs it over his temples, and breathes in like he's warding off demons. You wonder how long you've been in this chamber. Minutes, hours. Time here feels more philosophical than practical. There are no clocks, only the slow dripping of water, the occasional clink of a cup, and the murmuring of secrets that will never be yours. You're deeply tired, not sleepy tired, bone tired, heat tired, overtired from constantly calculating how many fingers of towel to leave showing and whether you're sitting like a free citizen or a confused goat. You take another sip of wine and decide, briefly, that you understand Rome now. The control, the ritual, the obsession with order wrapped in chaos. Everything is structure but sweaty. Everything is political but polite. You shift once more and hear a distant bell ring. It's faint. Like a note from far away, it signals the next transition, the moment when bathers move toward the next room, where bodily functions and ancient sanitation collide in a space known as the Roman latrine. Your skin has dried slightly. You feel less like an oil spill and more like someone who's been glazed. You stand, stretch, and nod at no one in particular. If you people nod back, that means something, you think. You leave the gossip zone behind and head toward a shadowy doorway, where the scent changes abruptly from perfume and oil to something far more ominous. A mix of damp stone, stale water, and faintly used sponge. You are about to learn how ancient Rome answered the most eternal of human questions. Where do I go to the bathroom? You step cautiously into a narrower hallway, one where the ambient mist has thinned out and the warmth drops just enough to remind you. You are no longer among gods and scented oils. You are now entering the realm of plumbing Roman style. Welcome to the latrine. Yes, that's right. It's time to face what may be your greatest test yet. The ancient public toilet. And no, you can't skip it. You've had water. You've had wine. You've sweated from places you didn't know could perspire. Nature is tapping on your shoulder with increasing urgency, and Rome never one to do things halfway has an answer. It's just not one you like. The room ahead opens suddenly into a surprisingly spacious chamber. It's quieter here, but not peaceful. There's a background symphony of drips, sloshes, occasional grunts, and the unmistakable ripple of water flowing somewhere just out of sight. You squint. Your eyes adjust. There they are. The communal toilets, a long, continuous bench of smooth, water-worn stone runs along the wall, dotted with evenly spaced circular holes. Beneath them, a channel of running water, part of Rome's famously sophisticated aqueduct and sewage system. The water is doing its best. Bless it. But it has clearly seen things. There are no stalls, no doors, no partitions. Just you, your fellow bathers, and whatever dignity you can wedge between yourself and that bench. Historians still argue whether using the latrine was a social activity or simply a necessary evil that everyone pretended was. Isn't happening. Some scholars claim Romans chatted while relieving themselves, discussing philosophy or politics. Others suggest that even in this extroverted empire, people kept their eyes forward and their conversations brief. You are hoping for the latter. You hover awkwardly, trying to gauge the etiquette. Some bathers enter, set, and depart with stunning efficiency. Others linger, staring ahead like monks in meditation. One man is humming. Another is sketching in the steam on the wall beside him. You are, once again, the confused one in the corner, clutching your towel and hoping for a miracle. And then, there it is, the sponge, on a stick, resting innocently in a shallow bowl of cloudy water. You knew it was coming. You've heard of it. The Tesorium Rome's answer to toilet paper. A communal sponge on a stick, rinsed between uses, rotated throughout the day, and according to some sources doused in vinegar or salt water for sanitation. You're not sure whether to laugh, cry, or run. Meanwhile, your phone is still dead. But at this point you gladly trade 3 Instagram posts for a moist toilet and some emotional support. You approach the bench. There's no way to do this gracefully, so you simply pretend that grace has never existed and lower yourself onto the cool stone. The hole beneath you gapes ominously. You try not to imagine what's down there. You try not to breathe too deeply. You wait. You sit. You try to relax. But your body is staging a protest. You reach for the sponge. You hesitate. You consider everything you've ever learned about bacteria, sanitation, and your own self-worth. Then you remember, you're in ancient Rome, in a public bathroom, and you've already been all scraped like a roast pig. There's no pride left to lose. You use a sponge. We're not going to talk about it. You place it back in the bowl with the reverence of someone returning an artifact to its sacred pedestal. You stand. You shuffle away. You do not look back. Remember, that oil from earlier, it's now mixed with humiliation and an urgent desire to sanitize your entire existence. You rinse your hands in a secondary stream nearby, where fresh water trickles from a lion's mouth carved into the wall. The lion looks smug. You glare at it to distract yourself from your recent ordeal. You glance at the graffiti scratched into the plaster. Romans loved leaving messages, even in latrines. Most are faded, but one is still visible. A crude drawing of a gladiator and the phrase Fortunatus excavatic. Fortunatus relieved himself here. You feel a strange solidarity. You return to the main corridor and rejoin the flow of bathers. Some look relaxed, some look suspiciously smug. You, on the other hand, look like someone who has stared into the abyss and been mildly wiped by a dot as you pass back into the more humid zone. The steam begins to embrace you again. It clings to your skin like a warm, foggy reassurance. You're back in the land of perfumed oils and judged postures. But now, you are changed. You've seen the underbelly of the bathhouse. You've used the sponge, and there is no going back. The mist gathers again as you leave behind the sponge, the stone bench, and whatever part of your spirit remains in the latrine. You don't speak. No one does. There's an unspoken rule in the Roman bathhouse. What happens in the latrine gets quietly absorbed by the plaster walls and never, ever leaves. You rejoin the slow shuffle of glowing, scraped, hydrated bodies, headed toward the next ritual stop. It's not obvious at first, just a slight curve in the hall, a change in humidity, a shift in scent. You pass under an archway adorned with carved dolphins and enter a room that smells faintly of herbs, wool, and ambition. Welcome to the Medicus pop-up zone, part apothecary, part unsolicited medical seminar, and part weird cousin of your local health spa. There's no sign, no announcement, just a few low tables covered in jars, trays of crushed leaves, bowls of odd-smelling goo, and one man sitting in the corner wearing an alarmingly loose robe and a look of medical authority. He doesn't speak to you. He gestures at you, a wave of the hand, a beckon, the universal expression of you look mildly unwell, and I have solutions you won't endure. You approach, because you've made it this far, and honestly, what else is left to lose? The man smells like garlic and wormwood. His skin glows in the weird bathhouse where equal parts steam and smugness. He gestures toward a low stool. You sit. It creaks. He nods. And now, without warning, your forehead is being smeared with a thick paste that smells like old parsley and crushed copper corns. The medicus mumbles something about excess heat in your liver and dabs under your eyes. You blink, the paste tingles. A small part of you wonders if you're about to be sacrificed. The rest of you is too tired to care. He pulls out a bundle of dried herbs and waves them near your face. You sneeze once, violently. He smiles as if this confirms something. Historians still argue whether these medical treatments offered in Roman baths were ceremonial, spiritual, or just exceptionally persuasive nonsense. Some believe these medicus figures offer genuine, care-balancing humors, adjusting diet recommendations, prescribing herbal poultices. Others say it was more about the performance, the illusion of care paired with some vinegar and bravado. Your medicus now produces a thin, wriggly object from a clay dish. A leech. You meet eyes with it briefly. It seems to wink. You shake your head before he can attach it anywhere. He shrugs. Disappointed but not surprised. Instead, he offers you a cup of murky liquid herbs floating in what might be wine, or vinegar, or possibly both. You sip. It tastes like boiled disappointment with notes of oregano. Meanwhile, your phone is still dead. But so is your sense of taste. You now exist in a strange middle world where sensations blur together and ancient medicinal logic becomes increasingly persuasive across the room. Another patient is having their foot wrapped in cabbage leaves. The medicus pats it gently, like one might console a mildly injured goat. You feel a surge of gratitude that your own diagnosis only resulted in forehead paste and spicy tea. You're instructed to lie down briefly on a warm slab. The medicus hums as he presses two fingers to your wrists and mutters about imbalanced humors and cold breath in the bones. You nod solemnly. You don't understand. He doesn't care. You are now part of the ritual. Another bather arrives, limping dramatically. She has a jar in one hand and a broken sandal in the other. The medicus sits to work with surprising speed, offering a foot soak made from lavender, vinegar, and something that smells like wet hay. You consider asking for one, then remember your toe situation and choose to remain seated. Your treatment ends with a quick splash of rose water to the face and a whispered blessing to Salus. Goddess of health, you're handed a dried fig, which feels oddly ceremonial. You eat it because refusing fruit in ancient Rome feels unwise. You leave the medicus behind, your skin tingling with herbs, your breath tinged with vinegar. You're so lightly bruised but still present. You don't feel better, exactly, but you feel like someone has done something to you, and in Rome. That's half the journey. You re-enter the steam-drenched corridor. The heat enfolds you again. Like a moist blanket with too many opinions, somewhere in the distance, a bather is singing. The notes echo against stone, distorted but oddly beautiful. You pause near a brazier to gather yourself. You're shining again, this time from the paste, the sweat, and the lingering trace of mistreated tea. You catch your reflection in a polished bronze plate. You look, well, you look like someone who has been through some things. Remember that sponge. Still not thinking about it, you press onward. Your next stop is promised to be more comforting. A light snack, maybe some wine, something gentle. You follow your fellow bathers down a mosaic path of dolphins, fig trees, and winged sandals. Your footsteps echo now. You feel lighter. Then you hear the unmistakable sound of chewing. Your stomach remembers it exists. You're about to dine like a Roman. Brace yourself. You follow the trail of damp footprints and chewing sounds into a room that smells miraculously not like oil, mildew, or old feet. Instead, it smells warm, buttery, and faintly sweet. For the first time all day, you feel something like hope. You've entered the Roman bathhouse's designated snack zone. Technically, it has no official name, but every bather knows this is the reward for scraping off half your skin and surviving the sponge. Here, you are allowed to recline awkwardly, ingest slightly suspicious food, and pretend this entire ordeal was a wellness retreat. The room is dimly lit by bronze lamps, their flames flickering behind thin sheets of mica. The air is cooler here, but not cold, just enough to keep your limbs from melting off the benches. Low tables are scattered across the tiled floor, many already occupied by damp, lounging Romans, all artfully disheveled. Think toga chic, with a side of heat-streaked auburn. Attendant sees you approach and sets down a tray without making eye contact. You appreciate this. Your eye is still twitching from the vinegar leech encounter. The tray contains a modest collection of Roman delicacies, a few wrinkled dates, 3 olives with pits still in, a sad pile of boiled chickpeas, and because life is nothing if not, theatrical a roasted dormouse, stuffed with nuts and herbs, presented like it's proud to be here. You stare at the dormouse. The dormouse stares back. Historians still argue whether these kinds of foods were common for everyday Romans or limited to elites. Some say even the average citizen indulged in dormouse and exotic fruits at bathhouses. Others argue this was strictly Senator-tier snacking. You, meanwhile, are wondering how anyone eats something that tiny and confident without a moral breakdown. Still, you're starving, so you try the chickpeas first. They're cold, mushy, and taste like they've been stored inside a sandal. You move on to a date. It's sticky in a way that doesn't feel entirely food-related. The olives are passable, salty, bitter, and probably older than the Republic. You are the dormouse again. It's lying very still, garnished with a single mint leaf. You give it a respectful nod and decide not today. Maybe in another life, someone next to you is having better luck. He dips a piece of honeyed bread into a dish of goat cheese and hums softly. Eyes closed. He looks transported. You briefly consider asking him for a bite, but then remember your forehead still smells like cabbage medicine. You eat another olive instead, pit and all. A young woman walks by carrying a large jug of diluted wine posca. They call it a mix of sour wine and herbs. She pours a thin stream into your cup without stopping. You lift the cup in a polite half-toast and take a sip. It tastes like sadness and twigs. Meanwhile, your phone is still dead, but so is your sense of culinary discernment. You're now just grateful the food doesn't require chewing noises to be hidden under music. Here, everyone chews audibly and proudly. It's basically ASMR for exhausted citizens. You lean back and try to relax. A man across from you belches into his elbow and mumbles something about taxes. Another breaks into a heated whisper about a senator's wife who bathed twice in one day, which is apparently borderline scandalous. A woman to tables down laughs so hard she drops a fig. No one picks it up. It rolls with dignity into the corner. You reach for another date and find your fingers sticking slightly to the tray. You give up. Hydration seems safer. The attendant returns, this time with a fresh towel dry, mercifully. You accept it with the reverence of someone receiving a sacred relic. You wrap it round your shoulders like a shawl of rebirth and stare into the middle distance. Remember that damp tunic from the changing room. Still soggy, still alone. You miss it a little. You never thought you'd feel nostalgic for it, you will. But here you are. One of the older bathers near the wall stands and begins leading a strange little chant. It's half song, half prayer, something about Ceres and fertile grain. You don't understand most of the words, but the melody is oddly comforting. You hum along. You don't care that you're off key. No one here does. Then, a small commotion. Near the door, Someone has fainted. Too much wine. Not enough figs. Maybe an aggressive leech. A pair of attendants lift the bather gently and carry them out. Their towel trailing like a forgotten toga. The rest of the room barely pauses. This, it seems, is normal. You try lying on your side. It's comfortable until the warm chickpeas rearrange themselves on your tray and try to roll off. You sit upright again. Defeated, a small group begins to play a dice game in the corner. They slap down tiles, argue, laugh, and toast with tiny cups. One of them cheats. Everyone sees it. No one calls it out. That, too, seems normal. The roasted dormouse remains untouched on your tray. You feel guilty, like you've broken a small culinary oath. Still, you whisper an apology and cover it with your towel. Someone sneezes again. Hello, polite sneeze. No one reacts. You're grateful. Your limbs begin to ache not from exertion, but from sheer existence. The day, the steam, the scraping, the sponge. It's all catching up with you now. You rest your hands on your knees and take a long, slow breath, and that's when it hits you. You're not just tired, you're ancient Roman tired. A kind of weariness that seeps into your marble scraped bones and tells you, gently but firmly, that you've earned your rest. Across the room, someone lights a small cone of incense. It smells like lavender and burn thyme. The smoke drifts upward, curling round the frescoed ceiling like a sleepy thought. You stand, and steady but determined, you leave your tray. You nod at the dormouse, still proud in its minty repose. You nod at the dice players. You nod at the universe. It's time for the next chamber. You've eaten. You've drunk. You've suffered lightly. Now comes the game. And like everything else in Rome, it's not just for fun. You leave the snack zone behind. Your stomach slightly fuller and your dignity marginally more intact than before. The dormouse remains unconsumed, a symbolic gesture of everything you're just not ready for in this life. The hallway ahead curves gently to the left, as if luring you into the next experience with architectural subtlety. You follow, towel freshly draped, olive bits still lodged in your molars. You are headed toward the entertainment chamber space that combines socializing, gaming, and light psychological warfare. It's technically part of the Bathhouse experience, though Bath is starting to feel like a distant memory. You've dried off, been rehydrated, exfoliated, re-oiled, and moderately fed. And now Rome wants to test your wit. The room opens suddenly into a bright, high-ceilinged atrium lined with benches and a few low tables. The floor is inlaid with geometric mosaic circles, stars, winding vines that lead nowhere. Everything gleams under the natural light from the open oculus above. It's beautiful in the way that only a room built for subtle humiliation can be. A group of men and women are gathered near the far corner, hunched over a game board carved directly into the table. They're playing Ludus Latrunculorum, an early version of chess or checkers. Depending on who you ask, the pieces are smooth stones, white and black, moving according to rules that no one has agreed on in centuries. Historians still argue whether this game was meant purely for entertainment or if it doubled as a tool to sharpen military strategy. Judging by the intensity on these bathers' faces, the stakes today are personal. You hover nearby, pretending not to be interested. One player looks up, nods, and gestures to an empty bench beside them. You sit. You regret it almost immediately. You're handed a tile and told, wordlessly, that you're next. You don't know the rules. You don't know your opponent. You don't know why the woman across the table is sharpening her fingernail against a coin. But you do know that everyone is watching. You place your first piece cautiously. She responds with a dramatic flourish and a smirk. You've already lost. haven't you? Meanwhile, your phone is still dead, but so is your ability to bluff. You're the weakest link in a game where strategy meets subtle eye-rolling and occasional murmurs. In Latin, someone leans over your shoulder and makes a disapproving noise. Someone else chuckles. The atmosphere is part spa, part Roman reality show. You make another move. The crowd makes a collective oof sound. Your opponent leans in and taps her piece gently against yours, removing it from the board. She places it in a bowl beside her, where other defeated pieces sit like discarded fortunes. She doesn't gloat. She doesn't need to. The gloating is implied by her superior posture and perfect towel fold. You look down at the board. You are not sure what just happened, but it felt like a metaphor for something. Someone offers you a cup of watered wine in consolation. You take it. It tastes slightly better than last time. Though that might just be your palate giving up. You excuse yourself from the game with a small, courteous bow that probably reads more as "please forget I existed." You slink toward a quieter corner, where a group of bathers are playing a different game, one that involves rolling nuts along a grooved board and cheering when they don't fall off the edge. This you can handle. You join. And for the first time today, you feel like you almost belong. The rules are simple. The stakes are non-existent. One of the bathers pats your shoulder when your nut goes slightly askew. You smile. The room doesn't smell like vinegar. No one is scraping you. The bar is low, but you've cleared it. A poet in the far corner stands up and recites something improvised and dramatic. It involves Jupiter, a runaway goose, and unfulfilled prophecy. He finishes with a bow and receives light applause. You clap. 2. You have no idea what he said, but it felt important. A woman beside you offers a dried fig. You accept. It tastes better than the one from earlier, less like panic, more like subtle achievement. You lean back against the mosaic wall. The tiles cool against your still oily skin. Your towel is slowly drying. Your hair is less damp. Your shoulders are still recovering from the struggle attack. But they carry the burden with grace now. You are, in Bathhouse terms, evolving. Then the loud clack of a staff on marble draws everyone's attention. An older man, dressed in a robe dyed with an expensive hue of purple, enters the room. He doesn't speak, but everyone shifts slightly to acknowledge him. You do too, because clearly this man is important. He makes a beeline for the gaming table, where your former opponent rises immediately and gives him her seat. He begins to play without a word. The room watches. This is Rome at its most distilled, a place where power is measured by how well you place a black stone on a carved board while covered in oil and fig juice. You slip out of the chamber while attention is elsewhere, not because you're unwelcome, but because your body has begun to ache again. The long, slow fatigue is returning, like a creeping fog behind your eyes and under your skin. Remember that scratch on your ankle from earlier. It's still there, but now it's coated in mystery bomb and smells faintly of bay leaf. You follow a flickering torchlight toward the next corridor. It's getting darker now. Not ominous, just softer, more reflective. The games are over. The competition has quieted. Now comes the part of the day where the gods are invited in, not for strategy, but for something stranger. You take one last look back at the gaming room, where laughter still bubbles and strategy stones still clack, and then you step forward into the next phase of this very long, very damp pilgrimage. You are heading toward incense, shrines, offerings, odd rituals involving smoke and slightly judgmental statuary. And it will not be subtle. You follow the narrowing hallway, and almost immediately the air begins to change. Not in temperature, it's still warm, still humid, but in tone, something heavier settled in. The steam thins, the laughter fades behind you, and up ahead, flickers of golden light dance on the damp stone walls. You've entered the sacred side of the Bathhouse. Its single quote says not marked, not announced. But it's felt. You smell it first, burning, myrrh, crushed laurel, maybe a hint of sheep fat smoke depending on what was available that day. This is where ritual meets routine, where gods share steam with mortals, where you, glistening and half dehydrated, are expected to engage in spiritual hygiene. A series of niches line the corridor, each holding a small statue or shrine. Venus, Hercules, Fortuna, carved in marble, worn smooth by hundreds of reverent fingers. They gaze at you with blank serenity. One of them has been given a tiny towel, another, a wilted sprig of lavender offerings. Presumably, all fan gifts. You pause at the first shrine, Venus. She's seated, modestly draped, one eyebrow arched as if to say, "You really came here like that?" You glance down at yourself. Wrinkled towel, olive oil sheen, a thin smear of fig juice across your thigh. Yes, you did come here like that. You nod politely to the goddess. A small bowl rests at the statue's base, containing flower petals, a few coins, a polished seashell, and what might be a crumbled honey cake. You have nothing to offer except one slightly bent olive pit you place it in the bowl with a solemnity that surprises even you. You move on. This isn't a place where people congregate for a long. It's more like a corridor of reflection. Bathers pass through slowly, pausing briefly, whispering short invocations. Some light incense, others murmur prayers under their breath, gestures more habitual than devout. Historians still argue whether these rituals were deeply religious or simply an expected part of the social code, like washing your hands before dinner or saying bless you when someone sneezes. What's clear is that the gods were always watching, even in a bathhouse. Maybe especially in the Bathhouse. You pass a small alcove with a basin of water beneath a bust of Fortuna. The water is still. You're supposed to dip your fingers in and touch your forehead. You do. The water is cooler than expected. It wakes you up just enough to realize how tired you are. Ahead, a pair of bathers are kneeling beside the low altar to Salus, goddess of health. One of them places a small bunch of herbs beside the flickering lamp. The other closes their eyes and exhales like they're releasing the weight of a long week. You feel the tug to do something, say something, even if just internally. So you whisper a thank you. You don't specify what for. Maybe for surviving the sponge. Maybe for the fact that you still have your strigil and both sandals. Maybe just because it feels. Rude not to, a gust of steam rolls in from a nearby vent, and for a moment, everything blurs, statues fade. Light smears across the marble. It's easy to see why people felt close to the divine here. Everything feels half real, like a dream you're sweating through. Someone nearby hums a hymn. The melody is soft, old, and off-key. No one shushes them. You pause at the final shrine, Hercules, carved in dramatic musculature, holding a club in one hand and a tiny lion cub in the other. A joke, a forgotten myth, maybe just a sculptor having fun. Either way, the cub looks extremely unimpressed. You touch the base of the statue and move on. Meanwhile, your phone is still dead, but so is the urge to document any of this. There's no filter that can capture marble gods bathed in incense smoke, while you're wearing a towel that smells like baked chickpeas and resolve. The corridor ends at another open space, dimly lit and deeply quiet. This isn't a room for activity. It's a room for stillness. This is the sudatorium, the sweat room. But unlike the earlier steam chambers, this one isn't about heat. It's about atmosphere. It's where the soul is meant to shed whatever the strigil couldn't reach. Not everyone comes here. Not everyone wants to. But you sit, because you've come this far, and honestly. Standing seems risky right now. There are no windows here, just one small vent above, letting in the faintest trace of fresh air. The walls are painted with fading frescoes of gods in various states of repose, Bacchus asleep in a vineyard, Apollo reclining with a lyre, Mercury with his feet up. They're cleaner than you, more arrested. You try not to be jealous. Someone lights another cone of incense. The room fills with thick, curling smoke. You lean back. You breathe. You try to remember the last time you were this still. A stray memory surfaces, a modern waiting room, humming fluorescent lights, scrolling endlessly to avoid eye contact with anyone. You smile faintly. There's no scrolling here, just steam, stone, and silence. Remember the medicus, the one who offered you tea and disappointment. His paste is still faintly tacky on your forehead. You touch it gently. It's become part of you now. Round you, the other bathers sit in quiet contemplation. Some have their eyes closed. One has dozed off, mouth slightly open, arms folded like a disappointed uncle. A younger man sits cross-legged, fingers pressed together, whispering something to first to understand. You close your eyes, you inhale, you exhale, and for just a moment, you stop thinking about oil and fig residue and tactical sponge deployment. For a moment, you're just here. And then, like everything else in the bathhouse, the moment fades. Someone stirs, someone stands. The silence shifts. The final phase is coming. You rise, stretch, and follow. You're almost done. Almost. The stillness dissolves behind you, like incense smoke trailing out the door. Your legs are heavier now, not just from exertion, but from the gradual realization that you're nearing the end of your bathhouse pilgrimage. You've been steamed, scraped, oiled, perfumed, fed, medically questioned, and spiritually nudged. But Rome always saves one final twist before letting you out the door. You emerge into a broader, quieter, noticeably colder. Not cold, exactly, but sharp. Your skin prickles with awareness. The stone under your feet no longer radiates the forgiving warmth of the hypercost. Instead, it's cool and unyielding. Like a subtle warning, this is the transition point from reverence back to reality, from gods to gossip, from sponge trauma to something worse. Because now comes frigidarium. You step into the chamber, and the temperature drops the moment the air touches your cheeks. No more herbal steam or warm mist. The frigidarium is Rome's idea of a refreshing finish, a cold bath, a plunge pool, the Roman slap in the face before you go home. The room itself is gorgeous, of course it is. Arched ceilings, painted blue like a stylized sky. Columns carved with tiny dolphins and waves. The water in the central basin glows faintly, lit by narrow skylights above. It looks calm, peaceful, like something you'd see in a travel brochure. For a resort that specializes in underestimating your pain tolerance, you approach the edge. The water ripples softly. Someone nearby is already submerged to the shoulders. Arms folded like a statue of patient suffering, their expression says, "This is fine." Their eyes say, "Help me." You sit at the edge. You dip a toe. You immediately reconsider all your life choices. The water is glacial, not refreshing, not bracing, arctic. It's the kind of cold that makes your joints try to vote independently from your body. Your spine twitches. Your calf muscle clenches in protest. You've just been steamed like a dumpling for over an hour, and now Rome wants to shock you into wakefulness. You glance round. No one else is making a fuss. People are walking calmly into the pool like they've achieved some higher state of self-denial. One woman even dunks her head, then emerges like a soggy oracle. Eyes closed, mouth tight, serenity carefully curated. You take a breath, you stand. You step in. The first contact is spiritual, the second is regret. You descend one step, then another, until the water reaches your waist. Your towel, now draped over a stone hook, flutters in the soft current of air that moves through the room. You are, for a moment, a very clean, very chilly, very humbled creature of the Empire. You submerge yourself fully. Time stops. Your thoughts shrink to a single point, cold. Your breath hitches. Your shoulders clamp upward like drawbridges. Even your thoughts seem to contract inward, away from your skin. And then, something odd happens. You acclimate. A little. Not comfort, not warmth, but numb agreement. Your skin adjusts. Your nerves wave a white flag. You begin to float, almost suspended in a stillness that feels oddly cleansing. The water carries you, for once. You are not sweating. You are not even thinking. You just are. Historians still argue whether the frigidarium was essential for health or simply a tradition born out of Roman obsession with balance. Hot must be followed by cold. Tension must be followed by clarity. You think maybe they were just trolls with aqueducts. You rise slowly from the water, every drop clinging to you like tiny liquid regrets. You step back onto the cold stone floor. You shiver. You don't care. Your body is pink. Your toes are numb. Your soul is somewhere under the nearest bench, re-evaluating your life. Meanwhile, your phone is still dead, and honestly, you're thankful. If it weren't, you'd probably be trying to Google hypothermia Roman edition while your fingers freeze into tiny figs. You retrieve your towel, warm now only in memory, and begin to dry off. It helps slightly. The air, while cooler, isn't cruel, just honest. A reminder that you're almost free. A servant hands you a cup of lukewarm water. You take it gratefully. It tastes bland and perfect. You've had enough wine and vinegar potions. For a lifetime. As you sit to rest one final time, a commotion ripples through the room. Someone is missing a sandal. It has apparently floated into the frigidarium and now drifts. Lonely and misunderstood, near the far edge, a heroic child retrieves it, earning quiet applause. You silently dedicate the act to the gods. You glance round. Most of the bathers from earlier are gone now, already back in the changing room, dressing, whispering, preparing to re-enter Roman society clean, perfumed, and utterly exhausted. Remember that weird bomb the medic has smeared on your forehead. It's completely absorbed now. You don't know what it was. You don't want to know. But you'll never forget the smell of wormwood and vague disappointment. You exhale. You stand. The bathhouse has done its work. You've been steamed, soaked, scraped, splashed, teased, mildly worshipped, and deeply humbled. Only one phase remains, reclaiming your clothes and your previous identity. You head back toward the changing room, where somewhere, hopefully, your damp tunic still waits like a friend who's seen too much. You walk slowly now, not from reverence, but from muscle fatigue. The frigidarium has numbed your joints, pickled your spine, and possibly rearranged your internal organs into new, more efficient places. But it's fine. You're moving. That's enough. You are heading back to where this all began, though. You are not the same bather who entered the bathhouse hours ago. You round a corner and re-enter the apothecarium, the changing room. The air is warmer again, but it no longer feels welcoming. Now it's just sticky, like the inside of someone's elbow in summer. The floor squelches faintly underfoot, and the mosaic of Neptune wrestling a sea serpent greets you with the same smug expression as before. You search for your niche. It's Not obvious at first. You think maybe you've forgotten which one it was. Then you wonder if someone moved your belongings or mistook your tunic for a cleaning rag. Both seem likely. You scan the rows. The niches all look the same now. Damp, dark hollows filled with crumpled fabric and forgotten dreams. And then, there it is, your tunic, still damp, still unflattering, still unmistakably yours. You approach it like a long-lost friend who's a little bit toxic. You hold it up. It drips gently, as if sighing. You sigh. 2. You check for your belt. It's there, barely. Your sandals. One is present. The other is hiding behind someone's discarded towel. You fish it out. You avoid eye contact with the towel. You hope it wasn't involved in anything serious. Historians still argue whether theft in bathhouses was rampant or just overblown by satirical poets. Some say the capsary. Young boys hired to watch belongings often turned a blind eye or both eyes if bribed or bored. You saw no capsarius. You saw only chaos and that one old man who may or may not have winked at you earlier. You dress slowly. Your tunic clings to your skin like a disappointed sock. It's damp and evenly stretched, and smells faintly of parsley and shame. Your belt refuses to cooperate. You tie it anyway, badly. Your sandals squish. You're clothed now, technically. You feel exposed in new ways. Meanwhile, your phone is still dead. But you don't miss it anymore. What would it even say? Sorry, we can't connect to your dignity right now. You stand in front of a small bronze mirror embedded in the wall. It's not flattering. Bronze never is. It shows you as a blur of towel-frizzed hair, glazed eyes, and moist resignation. You accept this as your truth. Behind you, bathers come and go. Some chat casually while dressing. One man applies a paste to his armpits with a tiny spoon. Another is debating loudly about the best time of day to visit the coldarium. A group of teenagers wrestle near the exit, slipping and laughing. You want to warn them. You don't. They'll learn. You check your pouch. Your coins are still there, which feels like a minor miracle. You tuck it into your belt with the same paranoia usually reserved for airport security lines. You start to walk toward the exit, and then you hear it a shout, a scuffle, a sharp cry of protest. You turn. Across the room, a younger bather is arguing with an attendant, something about a missing necklace. Voices rise, fingers point, the energy shifts. And then, somehow don't ask how you're involved. Not deeply, not personally. But someone gestures in your direction, maybe because you were standing nearby, maybe because you look like you've already been through enough and are unlikely to resist further injustice. The attendant narrows his eyes. You shake your head slowly. They look at your pouch. You clutch it. You are now a suspect in a bathhouse theft. It's unclear what's happened. A piece of jewelry has vanished. The young bather is accusing everyone. Within 5 feet of them, you are within 5 feet. You are damp, confused, and visibly unthreatening. But suspicion, like steam, seeps into the cracks. You are questioned, not harshly, just firmly. Someone asks where you sat earlier. You don't remember. Someone else asks if you saw the necklace. You didn't. You are not even sure what it looked like. Silver, gold, a fig-shaped pendant. That would be ironic. You stammer out answers. A third bather comes to your defense. He's not a thief, she says, pointing at your still dripping tunic. No one that soggy can lie. There's a beat, a shrug. The tension dissipates. The accuser finds their necklace wedged behind a bench. They mutter an apology without making eye contact. You are released. No one says sorry. You adjust your belt again. Remember that sponge. Still not the worst part of your day. You move toward the exit. Head lower, pace faster. The sunlight ahead looks almost fake. It's too bright, too dry, too judgmental. You pass under the arch that leads to the outer corridor. The air changes. It's fresher, less invasive. A breeze drifts past you, and for the first time today, you realize you stink. Not bad, not good, just like you've been to the baths.oil, scraped, humiliated, enlightened, briefly suspected of petty theft. You reach the final courtyard. A few bathers lounge here in the last rays of late afternoon. You don't. You keep walking, past the fountain, past the mosaic of Neptune dot out into the Roman street. The sound of traffic hits your ears, chariots, carts, sandals slapping pavement, vendors shouting about turnips. The city resumes its chaos, indifferent to your transformation. You walk. You smell like basil, defeat, and mild antiseptic. You walk. You feel cleaner, lighter, slightly bruised. But you survived. You survived a full Roman bathhouse cycle. Barely. You walk with the slow and hurried steps of someone who has officially run out of energy and dignity, but still needs to get somewhere. The sun outside the bathhouse is starting to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the stone pavement. You're not rushing. There's nothing left to rush for. Every part of you is tired. Your arms, your calves, your liver, even your eyebrows. You're clean. Yes, but not in the triumphant, spotty sense. More in the everything that made you who you were has been rinsed down a communal drain sense. And yet, Rome is not quite done with you. Because this experience doesn't end with your final scrape, your last awkward prayer, or even the cold betrayal of the frigidarium. No, the bathhouse, ever theatrical, insists on a closing act. And this one involves a return to the public world not as you were, but as the glistening, dazed, half-pickled version of yourself that now exists. You round one final corner and step into the exit courtyard, a transitional space between the womb-like warmth of the baths and the cacophony of the Roman street. The temperature out here is somewhere between pleasantly cool and subtly mocking. The light is golden. Filtered through the high colonnades, you squint. Everything feels overly crisp, like someone's turned the contrast up to high. The world is louder now, too, more alive. The distant clatter of carts, the murmur of passing citizens, someone shouting about figs in the marketplace. Your ears twitch at sounds they'd forgotten existed. You find a bench, not one of the fancy, frescoed marble ones from inside. Just a plain stone slab, sun-warmed and a little uneven. It feels wonderful. You sit, you breathe, you try not to think, and that's when you notice something else. A slow trickle of people emerging from the other side of the courtyard, bathers like you. Freshly ray-clothed, slightly hunched, blinking, into the daylight as if they've been underground for months. One of them sneezes, another stumbles, a third adjusts his tunic and looks round like he no longer recognizes the city. These are your people now, the survivors, the post-bathhouse clan, and you share a bond deeper than any aqueduct. You're all damp in strange places, lightly exfoliated and questioning your choices, and still, Rome expects you to return to society like nothing's happened, to go to the market, to attend a forum, to meet friends for wine and pretend you weren't just spiritually destroyed by a sponge on a stick. You lean forward slightly, elbows on your knees. The sandals you're wearing are dry now, but only on the top. The undersides are still soggy, slapping faintly with each step. Your belt is tight in one spot and loose in another. Your hair feels like it's been both boiled and frozen. You wipe your brow and realize, faintly surprised, that there's nothing left to wipe. No sweat, no oil, just skin, bare, clean, vulnerable. You've run out of layers to shed. You glance back toward the bathhouse. The steam still drifts lazily out of the arches. The statues of gods still pose as if nothing has happened. The doorway still yawns open, inviting the next poor soul into its polished clutches. You won't be one of them, not today. You've earned your exit. You stand, slowly. Your knees pop, your tunic creaks. You walk toward the street, leaving wet footprints that fade almost immediately in the Roman dust. You pass a pair of women, discussing laundry, a man hauling empty, a group of children running past with sticks and shrieks. Life is continuing, blissfully unaware that you have just survived a sacred ordeal disguised as hygiene. Remember that first step through the bathhouse doors, the humidity, the judgmental silence, the moment you realized your tunic would betray you. All of that still lingers. It's with you now. You carry it in your pores, in the way you now regard puddles with suspicion, in the subtle twitch of your eye every time someone mentions olive oil. And then, as you turn the corner and begin your slow walk home, the final indignity, a drop of water, previously trapped in your ear canal, decides to escape. It slides out and rolls down your neck like the ghost of every bad decision you've made since breakfast. You pause. You wipe it with the back of your hand. You nod to yourself. Because there's nothing else to do. You are free. You are clean. You are mildly traumatized. And you will never, ever look at a sponge the same way again. You don't walk home so much as drift. One semi-dry foot in front of the other. Arms swinging slightly. Not from purpose, but from mechanical necessity. The bathhouse is behind you now, but its memory clings like the last layer of all your strigil couldn't quite scrape off. The stone streets of Rome bustle as always, vendors shouting about cucumbers, clinking amphorae, sandals slapping the ground in erratic rhythm. But you move through it differently now, not as a citizen, not as a shopper or a bystander, as a bather, someone who has seen things, who has been steamed, scraped, spiritually sanded down, and reassembled out of sweat, and salt and slightly bruised ego. You nod at a passing man carrying a basket of lemons. He nods back, instinctively recognizing the glaze of someone freshly returned from the thermi. A subtle nod, his survivor's salute. You pass a group of young men arguing about the Senate's LATSD tax proposal. One of them gestures wildly with a half-eaten fig, nearly whacking an old woman in the face. She dodges effortlessly. No one misses a beat. Rome is still Rome, brutal, glorious, and deeply disinterested in your personal enlightenment. You walk on, following the familiar curve of the aqueduct-shadowed street that leads to your home. Your legs ache in a good way now, sort of dull. Post-battle throb that reminds you of the long sequence of indignities you've just endured. Remember the sponge. Of course you do. Remember the frigidarium's betrayal. How could you not? And the oil. So much oil. You're fairly sure there's still a pocket of it hiding behind your left knee. You'll find it eventually. Maybe in your sleep. You pass the little bakery on the corner, the one that always smells faintly of burnt grain and ambition. The baker's son is outside, swatting flies and humming. You give him a half-smile. He doesn't return it. He's never been to the baths. He still knows peace. You envy him. You arrive at your door. The wood is sun-warped. The hinges creak as they always do. Inside, the air is dry, cool, and fragranced. Perfect. You step inside and close the door behind you with the finality of someone sealing off a chapter of their life. Your body thanks you immediately. Your feet pulse in your sandals, your belt sags, your tunic sighs. You consider collapsing directly onto the floor, but instead you slump onto the low couch in the corner and let gravity claim you. Your joints crack. Your back sticks slightly to the cushion. Your soul sloshes faintly in your chest. You sit for a long moment, staring at the ceiling, blank-eyed and steaming from within. You've made it. You've lasted a full room in Bathhouse. Cycle. And though it wasn't pretty, wasn't elegant, or dignified, or particularly voluntary, you did it. You endured the scolding, the scraping, the suspicious herbs, the suspicious eye contact, the snack that looked back, and the sponge that no person should ever speak of again. You reach for your cup of water lukewarm now, because room doesn't. Believe in ice and sip it like it's ambrosia. You let it roll round your tongue before swallowing. Even your taste buds feel cleaner, or possibly traumatized. Either way, they're quieter now. Everything is, the house, your head, even your skin, still buzzing faintly like it's not sure whether to flake off or start a religion. You close your eyes. Behind them, the bathhouse lives on. The blue tile ceilings, the hiss of steam, the slap of wet feet on hot marble. You try to push it away, but your mind keeps circling back. To the cold water, to the priestess whispering, to a statue of Fortuna, to the bronze mirror that showed you just how strange you looked with cabbage smeared on your cheeks. You smile. A small one, the kind that knows too much. You think about telling someone, but how would you even explain it? I paid to be lightly cooked, aggressively moisturized, falsely accused of theft, dunked in Roman tap water. No, this stays with you. This is yours. You lie down. Finally, your head sinks into the pillow. It smells faintly of straw and lavender. You close your eyes for real this time. Your body, still faintly shimmering with residual oil, hums with fatigue, but your heart is steady. Your breath is slow. You're clean, and you will never be the same dog tonight. You've traveled far, through steam and stone, through oil and awkward silence, through rooms built for gods and shaped by hands long gone. You've soaked in heat older than your language. You've stared into bronze mirrors and seen yourself with one layer less. You've endured scraping, cold plunges, and an unfortunate encounter with a sponge that haunts even the boldest of souls, and yet you made it back, changed, yes, a little pickled, a little confused. But here, whole, quiet, let your breath settle. Now, let your shoulders sink into whatever you're lying on. The journey's weight is gone. The judgmental statues, the oil-slick floors, the fixed-scented chamber with too much eye contact, they all stay in room now. They'll wait there. They always do for the next visitor brave or foolish enough to walk through those arches. But not you. Not tonight, dog, tonight. You're somewhere softer, somewhere drier, somewhere quieter. And though you may still carry the memory of stone benches and tepid wine, your muscles remember something else. The slow release, the warmth, the exhale. That moment when the outside world stops knocking and you can finally just be dot, so let it all fade. The mosaics, the humidity, the sound of distant sandals slapping on marble. Let it all drift away, like steam in a breeze. What remains is only you, at rest, at peace, so very clean. And deeply grateful for modern plumbing. Sleep well, traveler.